All right, let's talk about generative AI agents. Over the next few minutes, we're going to dive into what they are, how they actually think, and why they represent this massive, fundamental shift in how work gets done inside pretty much any organization.
So let's start with this question. Just imagine for a second, what if every single person on your team had their own perfect expert assistant? This isn't science fiction anymore. It's the core promise of Gen AI agents. And honestly, the building blocks are already here today.
So, where does this transformation actually begin? Look, this isn't just some far off theory. Let's look at the tangible tools that are already reshaping how companies operate, from the way they talk to customers to how they unlock their own internal knowledge.
Okay, so let's get concrete. For your customers, you can build engagement tools that power way smarter chatbots or even give your human agents real-time assistance. And internally, you can totally supercharge your company's search capabilities or build custom agents that are experts in your own private data. Imagine turning that messy old intranet into a genuine knowledge hub that people actually want to use.
Now, to really wrap your head around this, it helps to understand the two main types of agents. The difference between them is exactly what makes this technology such a gigantic leap forward from everything we've had before.
And the difference? Well, it's actually pretty simple, but it's a huge deal. On one side, you have your traditional, what we call deterministic agents. Think of them like a flowchart. They follow a very strict, predefined script. If you go off script, they break. But on the other side, you have generative agents. They're built on large language models, which lets them go way beyond a script and have what feels like a real, flexible human conversation. Okay, so that leads to the big question, right? How did these generative agents come up with answers that are so relevant and so intelligent? How do they avoid just making stuff up? Well, the answer lies in this really powerful process for grounding them in fact. The secret sauce here is a process called RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. The absolute easiest way to think about it is like giving the AI an open book exam. Instead of just relying on the information it was trained on months ago, the agent can actively look up current facts from a trusted knowledge base before it answers. This makes sure its responses are both accurate and relevant to right now. And how it works is actually pretty cool and, surprisingly straightforward. First, the agent retrieves relevant info from its sources. Then, it augments your original question with all this new factual context. And finally, it generates a response based on that much richer combined prompt. It can even repeat the process if it needs to, refining the answer to make sure it's as good as it can be. And we can push this reasoning even further. Using some more advanced techniques, we can actually teach an agent how to think through a problem step by step, instead of just blurting out an answer. For instance, something called chain of thought prompting guides the model through a logical sequence. It's kind of like showing your work on a math problem. This lets the agent tackle way more complex, multi-step tasks.
But here's the thing, a really powerful agent doesn't just sit there and think. It actually does stuff. Its true power comes from the tools it has at its disposal to interact with the world and, get things done. And this, right here, is where things get really exciting. When you give an agent a toolkit, you turn it from a simple chatbot into a real-deal assistant. Just imagine asking it to plan my business trip to London. With its tools, it could connect to a flight API, check a database of company-approved hotels, and then use a function to draft an entire itinerary and pop it right onto your calendar. See? That's the difference between just talking and actually doing.
Okay, so you get the tech, which is awesome. But now for the critical part, especially if you're a leader. How do you build a smart, coherent strategy to bring all this power into your organization without causing chaos? A successful strategy really rests on four main pillars. Of course, you need a clear vision and the right people. But that second point, prioritization, is where I see a lot of companies get stuck. The key is, you've got to avoid trying to boil the ocean. Instead of a dozen little experiments, find that one high-impact use case, like automating a really painful internal process, and focus your energy there first. And finally, a plan for responsible AI that isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely crucial for building trust from day one. And the absolute best way to really get a feel for this stuff is to just get your hands dirty. You can start experimenting right now with incredibly powerful and accessible tools like the Gemini API, using platforms like Google AI Studio and Vertex AI Studio. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's pretty simple, really. This technology isn't on the horizon anymore. It's here. The agents are ready to be built. So the only question left is, what's the first important challenge you're going to give them?